Aaron, hey, thanks for being here. What do you make? You've seen the detail. We've seen what's publicly reported, but it's difficult, very difficult, to put a mission like this together. What's your reaction?
Well, it's good to see you. Congratulations on the book. Here's where I come out with this. There's two parts I want to unpack. The first thing here is intelligence, which is what hostage rescue or Tier 1 assets need. We have an expression in Hebrew, Pete, Modain nolad bashetach, which means intelligence is born on the battlefield. Israel's monster 8-month campaign, or Sir Lachatz, which means pressure cooker campaign on Hamas, is what garnered the actual intelligence. Boots on the ground is what brings hostages home. So Israel, continuing with those operations, got the intelligence needed in association or in partnership with U.S. Tier 1 assets from DevGru and Delta Force and other intelligence apparatuses over the last several weeks to figure out exactly where those hostages were being kept in the Nusrat refugee camp. Number one, you don't get intelligence, by hanging out, Pete. You get intelligence from the actual battlefield. So Israel's forward operations is what got that information. That allows special operations units of ours in Israel to be able to accurately determine when, how, where, how many hostages there are and where exactly they're located. It has to be very precise. That's number one. Number two, Israel's Tier 1 assets. In the 70s, Israel partnered with their behavioral scientists because they needed to figure out a better, smarter, more effective way to do CQB, or close quarters battle, which I know that you're very familiar with. You've been trained in it. So they leaned into the science and developed what was called behavioral-based CQB. They found that when operatives or operators were getting shot at, they'd move to cover. They found that there was compulsive firing and non-sighted, so they developed point shooting. And then they developed what was called limited penetration room clearing. They can get 90% of those structures, Pete, from outside the threshold without moving in. And that allows them to be able to do what no other spec ops units in the world do, which is be able to make entry from 360 degrees, crossing and muzzling and flagging other operators so that they can overwhelm the terrorists. They can only point in one direction at a time. And that's because the tactics are behavioral based.
Wow.
They're standing and firing, they're point shooting, and they're moving with an extreme violence of action. And that's what units in Israel are trained to do. This isn't 40 hours of training, Pete. It's thousands and thousands of hours. They hit during the day, which gave them the element of surprise, specifically in central Gaza, because operations were typically conducted at night. But let me go back to this. This operation was intelligence driven. By Israel's pressure cooker Sir Lachatz campaign. And that intelligence comes from the battlefield, Pete. You have to have boots on the ground to get that rolling intelligence. And Noah is home because Israel put military pressure on Hamas.
It's fascinating. It's definitely not how we do CQB in conventional units. And as a result, that would overwhelm an adversary. Just real quick, the exfil, it seems like we heard earlier from a commander, a spokesman from the IDF, that there was a disabled vehicle which means they had to call in conventional forces. There was a big firefight to get him out. So in this moment, it was a success, obviously, but there was also one commander lost. Can you tell us anything about how that happened?
Yeah, from what I understand, Pete, from my sources directly involved with the mission, there's 4 Tier 1 operations units in Israel. I served in one of them called the Mistar Ravim. One officer from the Imam, which is the Yechida Miuchedet Mishtartit, or Israel's police hostage rescue counterterror unit, was killed. He is a national hero now in Israel. He gave his life in order to free Noah and 3 other Israeli hostages. 2 buildings hit simultaneously. He was one of the primary entry team members. The guy was an absolute stud in the Imam. Unfortunately, he got killed. We pay a very high price, Pete, to have a Jewish state. This is one of the high costs, losing this guy. There was a very heavy firefight on the way out. Hundreds of special operations soldiers, Pete, from all the different Tier 1 assets, from the air, our JTAC elements, our Israeli SEALs, our Mistar Havim units, gunning it out with Hamas in order to create diversion, to get the Imam and to get get those Tier 1 assets back to the chopper, but they did an incredible job. It was very complex. But, Pete, we're going to see more of these, and Israel needs to stay on the ground. We're going to get these hostages weren't freed, Pete. They were rescued. And whether Hamas wants to give them back or we go and get them back, either way, they're coming home. So stand by. You're going to see more of this, Pete. We didn't invent hostage rescue, Pete. The British SAS did, but we perfected it. Stand by. You're going to see some more magic.
Stand by. Aaron Cohen, thanks for giving us a lot of color on what is incredible. When you factor in the weeks and the intel and the work and the danger and the skill, it's phenomenal.